Welcome back to 15 Minutes of Finance. I'm Brandon West, a CPA here with 77 Financial Group, and I'm going to help you keep more of your money. Today, I'm going to be talking about the recent protest incentive against specifically Elon Musk's initiative with the DOGE sort of government accountability program, as well as the Trump administration in general, and how that has now translated into sort of a rising movement to boycott the IRS by refusing to file tax returns. And I've seen growing momentum for this and sentiment about this. And I'm going to talk from a tax expert's perspective. Should you do this? And if you are going to do this, what should you know about this specific form of protest? In other words, how does a failure to file your tax return potentially affect you now and in the future? First of all, I want to give a quick shout out to my business partner, James. I'm James with 77 Financial Group, and I bet in the next 15 minutes, I can get you excited about investing. That guy who does the other episodes that I don't do. Let me know, first of all, how my impression of James was. I've worked a lot on it. So if none of you know sort of our branding when you listen to this, so our DBA name that James and I personally here at our local firm in Southern California, it's called West and Walters. It's our two names. So if you've never been to that website, James has been starting again. He used to do it more in the past and has been getting more consistent now, ramping that up again, posting blogs and articles about different topics. The last one, which was, I think it published today, was excellent. Really, really good about annuities. We've talked about annuities before. If you know anybody in annuities, with annuities, you know retired parents, friends, relatives, whatever that are in annuities, consider sending them that article. You can go directly to westandwalters.com, navigate to the communities page, or you can just go to westandwalters.com/community. And we post all of our blogs there. Our podcast itself is also housed and sort of embedded there. And so anything that we do, written, verbal, whatever, we're going to start doing events here soon. They'll all be on that page. But that last article about annuities is a really clear breakdown by the numbers of why we as a firm usually shy away from them and are sort of adverse to the industry surrounding them, how they're sold, and whether they're fitting for clients. Our view is that they very, very often aren't. Really good and succinct information. So if you've ever wanted to know without listening to a whole episode, you just want to read for 5-7 minutes about really good bullet points to understand annuities better and whether or not they're a good retirement strategy, I'd strongly encourage you to go look at it. It's a great article. All right, let's get back to the topic here. So, look, it's no secret that this administration has been controversial, okay? By the numbers, the first couple months have not necessarily been very popular. Egg prices didn't come down like the way they thought they would. Some of the tariff initiatives made even a lot of conservatives mad who maybe voted for Trump. There's positives and negatives to any presidency. Obviously, this one has been very, very controversial. One recent way that the controversy has affected the tax world, okay, are recent conversations around Social Security, with DOGE being the Elon Musk-led government efficiency program. I don't remember what the D and the O is in the acronym. I believe the G and the E are about government efficiency. So I think it's something like oversight and government efficiency. So they've targeted Social Security. And so they've released information or said publicly that they found Social Security checks going to people who are 173 years old that shouldn't be in the system anymore. So they believe they found a lot of fraud, and DOGE has been trying to uncover a lot of this. A lot of people think that this program without sufficient oversight is not uncovering these sort of groundbreaking revelations that is being claimed by the Trump administration and by Elon Musk himself. And they believe that this overreach is going to hurt Social Security. It's going to sort of undermine the efficacy of Social Security, and there are some social, not social services, customer service is the wrong word with the government program, but sort of customer service-ish aspects of Social Security that's going to make it harder to get answers about Social Security, things like that. There's also been backlash about recent firings of the X amount of people at the IRS. People believe the IRS is being hamstrung, that government cuts across industries. People are losing their jobs. I have family members who work for the government and have lost their jobs. So it's affected my family personally. And so, a lot of people are upset about all sorts of these things. I won't take a stance on it. What I'm going to address is a rising momentum in what I've seen and I've seen this on Reddit, I've seen this on other social media, I've seen articles about this, talking about you should just not file your taxes. Like, make them track you down. And this, there's not a lot of ways we have to protest when we don't agree with a certain course of action. But if they're going to do all these things at the IRS and they're going to do all these overreaches that we don't support, this is a way that we can civilly protest peacefully, and at least add a big workload, with the sort of idea being, look, they don't care about us. They're doing all of these things. They're firing people at the IRS. They're never going to have the manpower to ever track down the fact that you didn't file. So you owe $500 on your tax return this year. Just don't file, okay? They're not going to have the manpower to track you down. You're a small fish. It's a way that you can protest. Functionally, it becomes stop giving the government money as a form of protest, but it's in the form of not filing taxes, okay? So that's the backdrop. My opinion on this. Failure to file as a form of protest, in my opinion, is not wise for a couple of reasons. The first of all, they don't really need agents to track down failure to file penalties. Go through this checklist real quick in your head. Do you have a Social Security number? Do you have a job or contracted income that you received in the form of either a W-2 or a 1099 NEC, non-employee compensation? 3, have you ever filed a tax return in the past? If the answer is yes to most or some of those questions, they don't really need an agent to track you down. You're probably getting an automatically generated letter when you get that notice from the IRS. Okay, so you're not a complicated case where they need to contact you and get clarity. You're not going to get probably selected for audit. What's going to happen is you're just going to keep getting auto notices, and until you file, those penalties are going to keep raising. Okay, so there's 2 things to know. So sorry, I said there's a couple of reasons. So that's the first one, is that it doesn't stick it to the IRS in the way you think it does because of the way that they track down. They know you have a Social Security number that they're expecting to receive a tax return from. You filed in the past, you have a W-2. Your employer has submitted that W-2, so they know you earned that money. You filed before, so they have in your profile 2022 taxes, 2023 taxes. They have a box that's empty that says 2024 taxes, so they know that it hasn't been filed. So they're waiting to get that receipt of filing from you for 2024, okay? And so when a certain amount of time has passed that they haven't gotten that return from you, the system automatically generates a letter that says, you haven't filed your taxes. Here's your penalty. Here's what you have to pay by. Please file your taxes, okay? So it's not something where they're never going to get to you. They don't have the time. That letter is going to come to you, okay? So the second reason not to pay, or that I don't agree with the not paying, not filing as a form of protest, excuse me. So the second kind of reason I oppose this, so to speak, or at least that I would advise you not to do this, is ultimately it can affect your credit. And that becomes a more significant issue. So you're going to get a couple notices, and then at the point where those notices have not been responded to, or you've responded but you still haven't filed, then you're going to go to collections. So at that point, now you have to decide, do you want to pay that original amount plus all of those penalties that now you've basically costed yourself, or are you going to have a credit hit where you got sent to collections on a collections notice and didn't pay? So now that's going to affect your ability to buy a house, your rate and ability to buy a new car. It's going to affect your interest rates on homes, credit cards, all of these type of things. You are going to ultimately hurt yourself by doing this as a form of protest. Number 3 is that it doesn't really hurt who you want it to hurt. I'll tell you who it hurts. It hurts me trying to help my actual clients that are trying to get money back. So let's assume, I don't think it will be effective because of the automated process I just talked about, but let's assume it would be effective. It bogs down the IRS. What's going to happen is I can't get a hold of them. I've been trying to get a hold of the IRS for weeks for an issue on a client to try to get a refund back. Between it being peak tax season and now extra things like this piling on, what's going to happen is the people trying to get a refund, your neighbors, your friends who overpaid in taxes, like a lot of people do, they're expecting their yearly refund. Now those checks to get their refund are delayed. The processing of accepting returns and getting those refunds process is delayed. Agents, CPAs trying to call for them, or clients trying to call themselves to get more complicated matters resolved. They're not going to be able to get a hold of an agent because not only are they understaffed, but now they're also dealing with all of this other backlog. It's going to hurt people who are trying to get their money or trying to get issues resolved where their business is not in good standing and they're trying to reinstate their business so that they can renew their business license. And they can't because they can't get a hold of anybody. So I really don't think that an initiative like this is effective. I really don't. I'm 100% in support of protest. I think it's one of the things that's sort of solidified not only in American law, but also tradition as a way to resist administrations and policies that you believe are wrong, okay? And that's across the board that I've supported protests on both sides of the equation. I think that protesting is good. My opinion as a tax preparer, just understand, if you protest in this way, you're probably hurting fellow taxpayers expecting a refund more than you're actually hurting these administrations, and you're probably hurting yourself both in penalty and in future potential risk to your credit. Just to give you an understanding, too, of what that means in terms of the penalties to you. So by failing to file, you owe 5% of the taxes that you owed, but there's a minimum of about $500. So even if you were expected a refund and you're like, you know what, I don't care, I'm going to protest no matter what, it's important to me, there's a minimum penalty for failing to file. Okay. So, and then over time that gets capped out, but failure to pay doesn't. So your failure to pay penalty will now continue. I believe it adds 0.5% more every month you don't pay, and that's just going to keep growing. So I would really encourage you, particularly if you owe taxes, don't let this continue to grow, and strongly consider the impact to yourself that this form of protest would have. All right, that's my take. I'm seeing more momentum about this. I've read through threads on Reddit, on tax groups, on general groups where people, they post articles about DOGE or Musk and they say, yeah, I'm not filing. And then a bunch of people in the comments, I'm not either. So I see this rising momentum. This is my opinion as a tax preparer, why I don't believe it's necessarily a very good way to protest if you have a problem with this administration, Musk, DOGE, whatever. Here's a little bonus segment as we approach 15 minutes. I am super against Social Security. This is a personal opinion of mine. I don't think we should abolish Social Security. If you paid into Social Security, you should be able to get Social Security. But I'm a big fan of transitioning away from Social Security altogether. I don't think it's a good system. It was never meant to sustain our current average lifespans. And guys, it's sort of a scam, okay? Here is my breakdown as a CPA and a financial advisor here at our firm. The average person makes around $40,000. A lot of people make more, but that's the average wage in the United States across the board, okay? Now, most people throughout their lifespan, their personal average wage is higher than that because you generally earn more as you get older. So that average accounts for there's a lot of young people in the workforce. But I'm just going to be really conservative, and I'm just going to assume that over your entire life, you don't even start work at 18. You start work at 20, and your average salary across your entire lifespan, your working life, is $40,000, very low overall for the total earnings expectancy of any individual. That means, let's say you retire at 65. That's 45 years that you contribute to Social Security. At $40,000, your Social Security check's probably going to be under $2,000. Okay, so you retire at 65. Every month you're going to get a check for. I probably should have done this math, but it's not very high. Okay, you probably know a lot of people on Social Security that are retired in your life. Ask them. This is what I want to make clear. if you had put that same money, so that's 6.2 something percent, into the S&P 500 over the course of 45 years, and with just a $45,000 salary, you were no longer charged that 6.2% of Social Security. You instead put all of that into the S&P 500. You would have roughly $2 million at retirement. A conservative estimate of sort of annuitizing it. I don't mean creating or buying an annuity, but the process of annuitizing, meaning I start with this much money. How much could I take out every year based on this starting principle? That process of annuitizing, easily $100,000 a year in income on $2 million. That's 5%. That's your money will probably still grow. If you want to annuitize in a way where all of your money is gone by 95, okay? And you're like, look, if I'm still alive at 95, it is what it is. All right. Easily you could earn $150,000 to $250,000 a year. So Social Security as a program is not good stewardship of money. It's not good investment, and it's not good retirement planning. Now, I understand the importance of it, and I would never propose to abolish Social Security with no alternative. But my point is, things like automatic enrollment in retirement plans, there's already a lot of states that are getting on businesses requiring them to auto-enroll employees in retirement plans. A very conservative match program where employers are mandated to contribute more to retirement accounts, and they would be able to do it because they immediately get 6.2% of every single worker that they pay back into their budget. So you could get rid of Social Security and require a 4.5 to 5% match, which would be more than most people get now, plus individuals own 6.2% going into a retirement plan. Now, realistically, instead of 6.2%, you have 10 to 12% without any other 401k plan at all, any other plan as part of this. You've now got 12% of your income going into retirement. Now you've got $4 to $5 million earning $40,000 a year. So a couple things. I do think long term, not necessarily the way it's being done now, but long term, a hard look at Social Security and a proposal of a better system could be really good for wealth building in this country. Two, I think that it shows the power of investing early and often and compound interest, right? Like, think about that. People earning only $40,000 a year, just the 6.2% that they're forced to put in Social Security, if they had invested, that would be $2 million if you were diligent about starting at 20 and continuing to your 65. So you only earn $55,000 a year. Guys, there's fast food restaurants over $20 an hour that you could be earning a $40,000 to a $50,000 salary. Maybe you pick up some overtime shifts. Maybe you can make $50,000 to $60,000. You put 5% of your money away and you never stop doing that till you retire, and you start early. You're a millionaire when you retire. So be encouraged by that. Sort of just my overall take. Fun fact, since we're talking about Social Security, I might as well put my opinion out there. So I'm not saying abolish Social Security. Don't create a system. Screw the people who have been contributing to it their whole lives. But long term, an alternative would be a lot better for wealth building. And the math is helpful to hear, because if you're not at all talking about Social Security, just that math breakdown shows how powerful just 6.2% of a pretty moderately low salary amount can be very powerful long term through compound interest in building wealth. So that's the episode, guys. Thank you so much for listening. As always, please leave any comments, questions that you would like to hear us answer in future episodes, and we will make them a topic, or we'll answer the question in the episode. Again, go to that community page, look up the last one on annuities. That's westandwalters.com, and then navigate to the community page. You can see those blog posts and those articles that we post. The last one on annuities, fantastic. There's been a couple here in the last few days that have been posted. They're all really, really great reading material if you want to learn more about different investment news and different investment strategies. As always, feel free to share the podcast with other people who you know would benefit from this type of financial knowledge. And as always, invest early, invest often. See you next time.